Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for a daily dose of Unfinity spoilers. So, this spoiler season, for the most part, Tomer's going to be covering Unfinity over on the Commander channel, because the set is pretty focused on Commander. Like, that's where most of the cards are going to see play, if they see play at all. However, today we got a few cards that might actually be able to see play in Legacy or Vintage, so I figured should probably make a video and talk about these cards. So before we jump into some new Infinity cards, a couple of quick reminders. Number one, if you want to keep up on the latest spoilers throughout the day, head on over to MTGpreviews.com. Number two, if you need some Unfinity cards, or really any cards, you can snag them from our amazing sponsor Card Kingdom over at cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish. Anyway, let's talk some Unfinity and Legacy and Vintage. So first up today, we got a new puppy Planeswalker, Comet Stellar Pup, and this card's pretty interesting. So it's a 4-mana Boros Planeswalker. You get 5 loyalty, and it has 1 ability you can activate, 0 loyalty to roll a 6-sided die, and then based on what you get on that die, you're gonna get one of 4 options. If you roll a 1 or 2, you gain 2 loyalty, and then you make 2 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. They gain haste until end of turn. If you roll a 3, you get -1 loyalty, and then return a card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. If you get a 4 or 5, Comet Stellar Pup deals damage equal to the number of loyalty counters on him to a creature or player, so going to be 5 naturally, and then you lose 2 loyalty. And then if you get a 6, you gain a loyalty, and you get to activate Comet Stellar Pup's loyalty ability 2 more times this turn, so 2 rerolls. So this is a card that, I gotta say, I love the top-down design of this being a dog Planeswalker. If you actually think about these abilities, the first one is your dog chasing a squirrel. The second one's your dog, like, digging up a bone that they buried or something. 4 or 5, I guess, is Comet Stellar Pup biting someone, probably. And then if you get a 6, I don't even know, high-energy day for your puppy. So I think the flavor is really good. The question is, can this card actually see play in Legacy or Vintage? People are talking about it. If you look at these abilities, every single one of them is pretty good. Like, gain a loyalty, make 2 1/1s. That's pretty good defense. It protects your Stellar Pup. If you roll a 3, you're kind of getting a very upgraded Renin 6+1. Remember, you can get any card back with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard. So worst case, you get back a fetch land. Best case, you could be getting back a Swords to Plowshares, or a Brainstorm, or a Lightning Bolt, or a literal Renin 6. So there's a lot of flexibility with that mode. If you get a 4 or 5, you're probably going to be able to kill something, which is nice. And then if you get a 6, you get to do it 2 more times. So every single mode on this Planeswalker is a powerful mode. If this was a Planeswalker where you could control which ability you were getting, I think this would be a very, very playable card. However, we got this layer of variance on top of it that you really can't control what you're gonna get. Maybe you really need a 1 or 2 to make some blockers, and you get a card back to your hand with a 3, or get some damage with Comet Stellar Pup, which isn't enough to save you. Maybe you really need the damage to close out the game, and you're getting a fetch land back to your hand, or making some sort of useless squirrels. So I'm naturally skeptical of cards with this level of variance. So it's a powerful card, but a very high variance card. Maybe it turns out that just having 4 pretty powerful abilities, or I guess 3 powerful abilities, and then the ability to reroll a couple times, which is pretty powerful in and of itself, maybe that's enough to let this card see play, even though you're not going to be able to guarantee you get the best mode of this card in any situation. Or maybe it turns out that it's just not quite good enough because of the variance. I've seen some people mention trying to actually like build around this, play Barbarian class to get extra rolls. We already see Maddening Hex developing into a staple in older formats. I don't think this is going to be worth it. I'm not even sure that Barbarian class actually synergizes with Comet Stellar Pup that well, because remember, if you read Barbarian class, if you would roll 1 or more dice, instead roll that many plus an extra dice and ignore the lowest roll, it's not giving you control over Comet Stellar Pup. It's not saying roll the dice and pick the one that you want. Roll 2 and pick the one that you want. What it's saying is roll 2 dice and you get the highest roll. So this is going to make it more likely that you're getting damage, I guess, with Comet Stellar Pup, or that you're getting a 6 and getting to reroll, which isn't bad. But it's actually making it less likely that you're going to get the 1, 2, or 3, which you maybe will want in some situations, and it might be increasing the odds that you kill your Comet Stellar Pup, because remember, 4 and 5, that's where you lose the big amounts of loyalty. So sure, you're going to get some damage, but if you roll with Barbarian class and get a 4 or 5, you're going to maybe like hurt something, or kill something, or damage your opponent, and then your Comet Stellar Pup is losing loyalty. So I don't actually think this plan is going to be legitimate. The other question is, how does this compare to the other powerful 4-mana Planeswalkers in Legacy? The traditional boogeyman is Jace the Mind Sculptor, which has oddly been replaced by Minsc Boo for the most part as the 4-mana Planeswalker of choice. It's hard for me to imagine that Comet is going to be better than Minsc Boo. Sure, there's some upside. You get more loyalty, which is nice. You're not gonna, lose it to a lightning bolt as easily or whatever. On the other hand, Minsc Boo is controllable. You're gonna get that hamster right away. You're gonna have the option to grow it and smash your opponent for 4, start sacrificing stuff. You're gonna get the hamster again for free if Minsc Boo lives. Comet Stellar Pup, as we talked about before, it's just so uncontrolled, which is perfectly on flavor for a puppy Planeswalker. Your puppies are pretty hard to control. On the other hand, it's not exactly what you want to make a competitive card. Plus, because Minsc Boo is so popular, we've started to see Hydroblast develop into a legit card again in the Legacy format. This is one of the top 10 most played spells in the format. One of the reasons that Jace has fallen away is everyone's playing Pyroblast and Hydroblast, so it's really easy to kill. If everyone starts playing Hydroblast to kill Minsc Boo, that's a 1-mana answer to your Comet Stellar Pup. So I gotta say, overall I'm skeptical. Will we ever see this card in Legacy? I think the answer is probably yes. There's going to be someone who has a 5-color value pile with Yarion, needs to fill out an 80-card deck list, and throws a copy in their deck list to see what happens. Maybe there's someone that builds a Boros Prison deck that's trying to ramp into Comet Stellar Pup and then take in Stick of Blood Moon or whatever and use Comet to win the game. I think we're going to see people try that. Will this actually be a legitimate card that actually changes the Legacy format? Color me skeptical. I think that the answer is probably no. Maybe I'm underrating the power of all these abilities, but my guess is when it's all said and done, the fact that all the abilities are random is going to keep this from being better than Minsc Boo, or if the meta shifts away from all the easy ways to kill Jace, worse than Jace the Mind Sculptor as well. So I love the design on this card. Don't be surprised if you see this on a Legacy table or on Magic Online and Legacy, if it shows up on Magic Online with people testing it out, but long term, I would be surprised if this was actually a real Legacy card. On the other hand, one card I'm actually kind of high on for Legacy, and I'm kind of surprised this is not an Acorn card, is Exchange of Words. This card, in a very specific deck, could actually do some serious work. So it's a 3-mana enchantment that says when it enters a battlefield, choose 2 target creatures. For as long as it remains on the battlefield, exchange the text boxes of those creatures. So there's 2 things that I think make this card kind of interesting for Legacy. Number 1 is Death Shadow. I think that Death Shadow decks could maybe give this card a home, because it actually works really well with Death Shadow. So Death Shadow, it's got a pretty bad text box. It gets -X, where X is your life total. So we do have legit Legacy decks playing Death Shadow that are built around losing your life really quickly and making your Death Shadow really, really big. Exchange Words kind of gets around this problem. Let's say your opponent has an Ice Fang Quaddle, or a Murktide Regent, or Dragon Rage Channel, or a Delver, whatever. You can get your Death Shadow down, you play your Exchange of Words, you give Death Shadow Ice Fang Quaddle's text box, so now it has flying, or give it Dragon Rage Channeler's text box, so now you're surveilling and maybe getting flying, or Delver, once it flips, getting flying. So you're getting this beneficial text box. More importantly, you're giving your opponent's Ice Fang Quaddle, or Delver, or Dragon Rage Channeler Death Shadow's text box, which should mean that that creature is going to die. Unless your opponent's at a pretty low life total, there's a good chance that this is a pretty nice 2-for-1. You kill your opponent's thing, and you make your Death Shadow a 13/13, because it no longer has the negative text box, and you get a beneficial text box from your opponent's creature. So I think that Death Shadow decks might actually experiment with this card, especially since it's a blue card. So you can pitch it to Force Will, you can pitch it to Force and Negation. So even when it's at its worst and you don't want this, at least you can get some value out of it. The other possible use of this card, and I don't know if this is the best use, but it is a pretty funny thing to put into play if your opponent shows and tells. So again, you probably got to be Death Shadow to want this card to begin with, but let's say your opponent shows and tells and puts an Emrakul into play. You can be like, you know what, let's put Exchange of Words into play, and then exchange Emrakul's text box of Annihilator and Protection and all that stuff with a Delver of Secrets text box, or an Endurance's text box, some useless text box, and then, unless somehow the Emrakul has haste, you get to untap and swing with your now Annihilator 6 Delver or Endurance and wrath your opponent's board away and probably win the game. And your opponent, sure, they still got a 15/15 because the Emrakul's going to keep its stats, but that's not really going to matter because the text box is the big deal on Emrakul. So I could see that being a plan as well. Is it better than just putting a Gilded Drake into play and stealing the Emrakul? I don't know if it's actually better than that, but if you're already playing Exchange of Words to synergize with your Death Shadow, then this is incidentally a nice hate card against show and tell decks as well. So Exchange of Words, worth keeping in mind at a minimum. I don't think this is changing the format, but it's another card that I can see legit uses of in Legacy. We also got a card that I don't think is good, but I think will show up in Vintage, and that is Celebrate 1000, a 5-mana artifact creature robot clown. It's a 3/3. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, roll 2 6-sided dice. For the result of 1, your Celebrate 1000 gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So you get a 6 or whatever, it gets +6/+6. For the result of the other, you also get one of these abilities: Menace, Flying, Vigilance, Indestructible, Lifelink. If you roll a 1, you kind of low rolled and you get nothing. If you roll doubles, you also get Double Strike until end of turn. So this card, it's not very good. I mean, it's a 5-mana 3/3. Sure, it gets bigger on your turn. Sure, it can get some ability. Sure, maybe it gets Double Strike. However, there's one reason to think that people will try this in Vintage, and that is Mishra's Workshop. So in Vintage, shop decks have always been around. They're always very good. Just having a land that makes 3 mana to cast an artifact, it's an inherently powerful effect. Is Celebrate 1000 the best thing that you can be jamming into play on turn 2 with Mishra's Workshop? Probably not. However, I do think people will play this card. You know, there's going to be someone out there who just wants to be able to say that they top-aided a Vintage event with a clown shop. So you know someone's going to jam one copy of this card, even though it's suboptimal, just to be able to get that title of the person who got a top 8 with clown shops. You know it's going to shoot up to the top of Reddit or whatever and be a big topic of conversation. So even though I don't think this is the most competitive choice, I do think you're going to have Vintage players that try this just so they can let their memes be their dreams. A bit of good news at the end of the day. People have been freaking out about stickers. People have been freaking out about attractions. The good news is these mechanics seem pretty bad in Legacy and Vintage. I know it's one day into spoiler season. We got a bunch more to go. Maybe something comes up that changes the equation. But stickers, they just don't seem powerful enough. The supports I don't think are good enough. And then attractions, they do have some powerful support pieces, but they're just so random. You gotta have a deck of 10 of them and you're gonna get a random one. And then you gotta roll a dice and you may or may not get the abilities. So it's just asking way too much for this to actually work competitively. So I guess wait and see a little bit. Maybe something changes in the future. But for now, I don't think that stickers or attractions are actually a real threat to Legacy or Vintage, and the freak out about these card types are probably a little bit overblown. Anyway, that's been our daily Unfinity spoilers for today. So what do you think? Can any of these cards actually show up in Legacy or Vintage? Is there anything else I'm missing? Do any of the other non-Acorn cards have a chance in non-Commander formats? Can they actually see competitive play back in formats as powerful as Vintage and Legacy? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back, well, at some point in the future if we actually get some more cards that might have a chance to see play outside of Commander from Unfinity. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.